Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really happy that you were able to take the time today to join us either live or watch the recording. My name is Danielle Kuhn. I'm the Associate Director of the Morton Deutsch International Center for Cooperation and Conflict Resolution. Yes, it is a mouthful. Our acronym is MD-ICCCR, which is also still very long, but it's what we've got. So we are located at Teachers College, and we're embedded within the Social Organizational Psychology Department. Our founder, Morton Deutsch, was a preeminent social research scholar and on faculty at Teachers College. And our center was founded, I believe now it was 33 years ago this year. So we've been there for quite some time. And our purpose is to study conflict in all aspects of it, all iterations, micro, macro, meso, all the levels. We look at intrapersonal conflict, interpersonal, geopolitical, every aspect of it. And our orientation is towards using systems of cooperation and dynamical systems to study that. But before I begin talking about that, Jasper, do you want to introduce yourself very quickly?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Jasper Leahy. I'm the Education Program Coordinator at the MD-ICCCR. And really my role is to support students, staff, faculty with our educational offerings and courses. So if you're interested in the certificate, I would be your main point person. And so, yeah, I'm really here to support in those ways and, ensure that the research that's coming out of our center is informing the courses that we're offering. So it's always, at the very edge of current research around conflict and conflict resolution. So excited to meet you all right now.
And we should also out ourselves as alumna. I am an alumni of the Master's in Negotiation and Conflict Resolution program, which is located, as we say, across the street at Columbia. That master's program actually grew out of our center. And Jasper?
And I took the Master's in International Educational Development at Teachers College. And while I was in that master's program, I took a number of the courses offered through the center, which is nested, as Daniel mentioned, like within the auspices of the Social Organizational Psychology program. Yep.
So if you want to go to the next slide, Jasper.
All right, let's do it.
So conflict, we asked you at the beginning, what was the first word that came up when you hear the word conflict? And as we noted at the beginning, a lot of sort of negative connotations were coming up, things like problems and anger. I saw disagreement. And then when we asked the question of, can there be any positive connotations that come out of conflict, then we started seeing things like creativity and growth and change. And so bottom line, we all know life without conflict is boring, and conflict permeates everything, all aspects of our lives, right? From our lives within our families, to our friendships, to workplaces, and of course, on the global stage. So our aim is to embrace the fact that conflict is not only inevitable, but it can always be a catalyst for change and for positive growth. So our aim is to empower everyone to learn how to make conflict work for you. And so these are some of the resources that we have published over the years. These are all books ranging from things like our handbook on conflict resolution. We have 3 editions so far. We'll be working on the 4th soon. And to things like Making Conflict Work and the 5%, which if you have taken our fundamentals course, you are probably familiar with those books. We also have some of Morton Deutsch's books focused on distributive justice and the resolution of conflict. So this is just a sampling. You can get more of a deep dive into these offerings on our website. And we also wanted to point out that also on our website, you can see these are a smattering of media stories that we've either had written about our center and the work that we do in our, for example, our Dynamical Conversations Lab, and some of the other research that we do. And our director, Dr. Peter Coleman, also writes a number of blogs that are published in different areas. So this page and the next page, these are some more recent, although things are changing constantly, and we have a number of other more recent publications focused not only on coronavirus and the pandemic and how it's completely changed and upended so many aspects of our lives, but also the pandemic of racial injustice and the civil unrest that we have been experiencing and living through these last number of years, really, but has come to an inflection point. So feel free, please, to go to our website. You can also follow our Twitter feed. We'll have all that information at the end so that you can stay up to date on what we've been up to. So the way that we center our work and center the research that we do and the educational pieces that we offer in our courses is focused on what we call conflict intelligence and CIQ competencies. And if you are familiar with the concepts of emotional intelligence, we've taken a little bit of that paradigm and applied it to conflict. So we are looking at the ideas and skills that people can use to manage different types of normative conflicts. And we recognize that situations are constantly changing. And so how can you have a toolbox really of skills that you can apply as different conflict situations change and evolve? And how can you approach it constructively? And then we ground those competencies in what we call systemic wisdom. So this is where the concepts, if you may have heard of them before, of dynamical systems, and some of the concepts that we've pulled from the arenas of physics and applied mathematics and taken a more quote unquote hard science version of systems thinking, and are actually applying it to conflicts and looking at how the dynamic, meaning changing nature of conflicts can really be best visualized when we map it out. And when we say map it out, we literally mean you take a big blank canvas and you use Post-it notes, or if you're doing it online, you use a platform to be able to literally map out all the nodes and the pieces of the conflict, and then figure out how those pieces are connected. What are the aspects that can incite more conflict? What are the aspects that can mitigate conflict? If this happens on this side of the web, how does that affect the other pieces of the web? So when we say systemic wisdom, we're talking about the capacities to understand these complex, dynamic concepts and contexts, which can either mean that conflict can get so extreme that it becomes intractable, or how do you work within that system to make changes, to mitigate, to maybe calm things down in this arena, but ramp up tension in this arena so that change and growth and positive constructive change can happen. And we want to support the emergence of more constructive patterns. So this is just a little bit of a visualization of how we've structured our certificate program and our courses so that you as a student, as a learner, can come to kind of grasp and really work with these concepts in the best way. So we start with self. We start with really digging into your own implicit theories of conflict, your own biases, your own orientation based on your identity and your family structure and how and where you were raised, how you personally handle conflict anxiety, and how do you approach constructive conflict resolution. And then we start expanding the circle a little bit to look at social aspects. So How do we incorporate things like negotiation, mediation, dialogue facilitation? How do you have constructive conversations within pairs or groups of people? And how does that inform the ways that we can move forward? And then from there, we situate it within these concepts of adaptive negotiation and adaptive mediation. So we understand that no two conflicts are the same. There may be similar aspects, but you really need to be able to have the set of tools and the capacity to think adaptively. So be able to say, okay, these things may work in this situation, but could really go awry in this situation. So how can you be flexible and adaptive and still be able to work constructively, and in particular cross-culturally? And finally, this is all embedded within a system. And so that's where we really bring in the dynamical systems mapping concepts, and how can you be adaptive within those systems.
So I'm going to share a little bit now of all of those competencies, like how they're translated into our educational offerings, our courses, and of course, what you're here today to learn a little bit more about, our advanced certificate in cooperation and conflict resolution. So this certificate helps to address these challenges that you may be facing or you may see in the world, such as negotiating conflicts across power differences or mediating more challenging conflicts, whether it be at work or out in the community. And then going back to this idea of cross-cultural conflicts or other types of intergroup disputes. How might we address those kinds of conflicts? And then I think some of these questions that we're facing as individuals, we're facing within organizations, and we really see out there in society, how can we love conflict that we're seeing right now to help transform some of these biases and patterns of discrimination that are institutionalized? And then I think once again, we can see so much in our world right now. Like, how can we work with some of these more difficult, polarizing, and entrenched conflicts that really resist all forms of resolution? Some of these things that we've tried this, we've tried that, and it seems to just stay and kind of return back to these kind of patterns of conflict. So really these, the courses that we offer through the certificate help you kind of interact with some of these questions. And we think help to provide some of these skills and theories to help address them in the real world. So a little bit more about the actual certificate. So the vision of the certificate is that all certificate holders should become scholar practitioners that are able to integrate and implement both applied and academic work in conflict resolution. And so the certificate is 16 credits total. It is composed of 5 core courses and 1 elective course. And I'll share those courses on the next slide, which includes a semester-long organizational internship and a placement of your choice. So for that internship, it really is this opportunity to apply all the theory and skills developed over the course of the certificate in an organizational setting. So that might be a setting, it could be anything from a consulting organization to a hospital to an actual mediation center, because we really see that these theories, this knowledge and skills can be applied in a wide variety of organizational settings and are really wanted by employers in a variety of organizational settings. So the certificate is granted by the trustees of Columbia University, the same way that your degree will be granted by the trustees of Columbia University and has been fully approved. The curriculum has been fully approved by the New York State Department of Education. So a lot of people often ask, like, how do you apply to the certificate? And it is rolling admission through TC's Office of Admissions. And the benefit for you, if you're already in a degree program, is that you already have completed certain aspects of the application already. So your transcript's already in the system, all of these other like little kind of technical pieces are there. So really the only thing that you have to add in when you end up applying is writing a short statement of purpose to explain why you're interested in this advanced certificate. So if you're moving through the certificate, you can concentrate fully on that, which may take you a shorter period of time since it is 16 credits, but most people will complete it on a part-time basis, often taking a few courses towards a certificate, often throughout the course of their degree program. And so that kind of brings me to this fast fact where like nearly all the people who are in the advanced certificate are also in a master's or doctoral program, both either at Teachers College or any of the other Columbia graduate schools. So this is a graduate level advanced certificate. And among our alumni, we've seen that most of them go on to work in the fields of either conflict resolution, conflict management, organizational development, consulting, human resources, nonprofit or social services, as well as program management. So really a wide range. And so I guess it was probably a year ago, we had an alumni panel for people that had gone through the advanced certificate. And it was really nice because they were able to come back and share how they have been able to apply it in the years following their graduation with the certificate. So the next slide actually shares what are those core courses of the certificate. And Danielle had mentioned this first one, this Fundamentals of Cooperation and Conflict Resolution, which is really a survey course to help understand what is the basis of all of these things that we're doing in the present day. What are the foundations of cooperation and conflict resolution? Where does it come from? What are all the different aspects? Like this idea of justice. How do we understand oppression? How do we understand cooperation and sustainable peace? So all of those little pieces, you're able to really gain that foundation to better then take the theory and the skills and go out into the real world. The next two courses are our adaptive negotiation course and our effective mediation course. So those two courses are practicum courses. So they're very much experiential, skills-based, a lot of practice, a lot of role play, a lot of time with that self-knowledge, trying to take assessments and understand how do I act in conflict, and then having that in mind when you go and practice and actually practice being in a negotiation or practice mediating a conflict. So those are very, very practical practicums. The next courses in the core are our advanced course, which is an advanced practicum for identity and intergroup conflict. So sometimes people will go through the advanced negotiation course and the effective mediation course and then say, you know, I really want to think about how do I actually engage with some of these more complicated conflicts that have these added dimensions of culture, of gender, of race, of sexuality. Like, how do I actually address some of these kinds of conflicts that have these additional layers? And so this course helps to really try to understand some of these dynamics and how they might play out in conflict, especially in regards to power, and then think about what strategies might be employed in handling those kinds of conflicts. And the final course in the core, which I had already spoken a bit about, is that organizational internship. And so then that's the core. So those are the 5 that are required. And then you get to choose one of our electives. So there's a range, anything from conflict resolution in a school setting. So thinking either as an administrator, as a teacher, how might you approach conflict in schools, and in educating and in creating an environment so that conflict can be resolved peacefully, constructively, et cetera. Then we have our constructive multicultural organizational development course, which we call CMOD. Once again, trying to help, give ourselves some of these acronyms so we don't have these long names. But CMOD really focuses on this idea of organizations that are experiencing long-standing bias, discrimination, and they utilize a case study to understand how might an organization be in that position. What's the information kind of coming in? And then how do you kind of move through that tension, recognize the longstanding patterns of bias and discrimination, map it out, and then understand how do we leverage what exists that may be strong and might help mitigate some of these patterns, and how do you put more energy into that? How might you diminish some of the energy in other areas that are helping to increase some of those patterns of discrimination? So it's very also, it's practice oriented, but really focused on kind of that organizational setting and trying to learn how you can help to leverage tension to create long-standing change, not short-term change. The other two courses are our Healing and Reconciling Relationships in Conflict, which focuses mostly on that interpersonal and relational conflict. So if you've had a conflict, how do you restore dignity to that relationship? How do you approach that person? How might you go about resolving that conflict when it's been when the relationship has been extremely damaged? And then the final course is called Conflict to Complexity. And so this course utilizes this strategy of mapping out conflict that Danielle had been speaking about, and looking at organizations, looking at even international conflicts or civil wars, to really think about like, how do we approach conflict and map it out so that we can better understand how some of those conflict dynamics can change for the better. And if you note, there are a few stars, and then there's the little caret, which indicates which of these courses that we offer through the certificate are also part of the Social Organizational Psychology Master's core courses and application course options. And then the caret means that it's one of the suggested electives. So I think you can see, based on that, there actually is a lot of overlap between what is already suggested or requested by the social work master's program and what our certificate has as its core. So I think that's something that often people have questions about. Can I do both? And I think we've seen that many people have been able to do both, especially because of that overlap. So this next page is just, actually our course schedule for this coming, or the current, we're in the spring semester, for the current spring semester. So you can see one of our courses that begins this coming weekend is full, but all of the other courses still have a few spaces available. Most of our courses are set up so that they're over the course of either 1 or 2 longer weekends. So it could be Friday evening and a Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday evening, Friday day, Sunday day. So, which really helps to accommodate people who maybe, some people may have full-time jobs, others may have other courses that are happening during the days. So we really have organized the schedule so that it can be the widest cross section of the student population can access our courses. And I just wanted to highlight this advanced methods course. The great thing, if some of you maybe are registered for the adaptive negotiation course, which is a prerequisite for this advanced course, you can still take it later on in the semester if you're registered for the adaptive negotiation course earlier in the semester. So if you're in that position and the registrar is saying, oh no, there's a prerequisite, please reach out to me and I can help override that prerequisite if you're taking the adaptive negotiation course earlier in the semester. So we can work that out. All right, so that's really all we have for you today in terms of presentation. Now we'll be happy to take any of your questions you may have. I'm going to stop the recording. That way we can really, talk to each other without some of those privacy concerns. And I also want you to note just here at the bottom, these are the ways that you would get in contact with us. You can see here the ICCCR email account. That's the general email account. So if you have questions about research or media or program or anything along those lines, feel free to email that email account. If you have a particular question for me in terms of what's going on in the certificate, if you have questions about applying for the certificate, if you have questions about any of our courses, which of course you're welcome to take as a standalone, and probably many of you would be doing that anyways in your degree program, please feel free to email me directly. Also, of course, check out our website. We have lots of very, exciting resources there, and that's where you'll stay connected to all the news and research coming out of our center. And then similarly, follow us on Twitter. And you can also follow Peter Coleman directly on Twitter, who is the director of our center and is the faculty associated with our center. So feel free to give us a follow.